Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the green, breathing heart of the Amazon basin. The sky's gone deep indigo, and everything around you glistens, leaves dripping from the last rain, mud soft underfoot, and a tangle of vines so dense it feels like the jungle's knitting itself shut behind you. You're wading now, ankle deep in warm, slow-moving water. Something slinks just beneath the surface. It's quick, curious, watching. That shadow? That's a giant otter. Long as a man, loud as a toddler with a kazoo, and twice as dramatic. You probably won't survive this jungle if you wander in without a guide. But lucky for you, tonight we're just floating along, watching. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't hear the otters at first. The jungle hums too loudly. Cicadas buzz like broken power lines, frogs wheeze out strange lullabies, and somewhere in the canopy, a howler monkey loses its mind over something trivial. But then the squeaks start. Quiet, then louder. A mix of chirps, whistles, and snorts, like someone dropped a walkie-talkie into a fish tank. That's your cue. There's a family nearby. They're moving through a flooded clearing, slipping between trees half submerged in tea-colored water, lit silver by the moon. You crouch on a log, trying to look non-threatening. They don't care. One glides up close, closer than comfort allows. Its eyes reflect like coins, and its face? Somehow it manages to look both curious and judgmental at once. Typical. This one's part of a clan, 6, maybe 7 individuals moving like they share a single brain. They hunt together, nap together, bicker constantly, and groom each other like obsessive roommates. They're all muscle, teeth, and personality crammed into a living pool noodle. But tonight, they're calm, coasting, scouting the shallows for fish dumb enough to linger. And the smell? Oh, we should talk about the smell. A ripe blend of fish guts, wet fur, and something musky that clings to the back of your throat like an old gym sock. It's their scent mark, a family signature made from anal glands. Thank you very much. Romantic. But for now, things are peaceful. You drift beside them in the moonlight, the water warm as a bath and just as still. You hear every splash, every rustle, every soft otter snore. This is their world. This flooded forest, where trees grow out of water and roots drink from rivers. You're not really supposed to be here, but they let you watch anyway. You wonder how something so sleek and weird ever ended up this way. Part weasel, part dolphin, part chaos incarnate. Turns out, the giant otter has been around for a while. Like 12 million years around. Fossils from Brazil hint at ancestors even bigger than these guys. Imagine an otter the size of a small bear, with bite force to match. Thankfully, evolution took a chill pill. Today's giant otter is only about 6 feet long, tail included. Still impressive, still bitey, but at least now it's not actively trying to reenact Jaws. Historians still argue whether indigenous cultures in South America saw these otters as sacred guides, dangerous tricksters, or something in between. Some Amazonian myths describe river spirits that look suspiciously otter-like, playful during the day, terrifying at night. In a few stories, these spirits drag people underwater not out of malice, but because humans looked lonely. Comforting. The water shifts again. You spot 2 siblings tumbling over each other in a slow-motion wrestling match. They roll, bite gently, chirp nonsense. One pretends to drown dramatically, the other pokes it in the ribs until it sputters and sulks. They're all fur and flippers, but their expressions are ridiculously readable, like if dogs could smirk. Nearby, an older otter floats belly up, eyes half closed, letting the current rock her like a hammock. She's the matriarch. You can tell by the way everyone avoids annoying her directly. She runs the show, decides when to move, when to hunt, and who's allowed to nap where. You get the sense she's judged you and found you tolerably boring, which is high praise. Off in the distance, thunder rumbles. The family perks up. Not scared, just alert. They know what that means. Fresh fish, higher water, and maybe a new den if the old one floods. You try to imagine living like this, building homes out of riverbanks and hollow logs, moving every few weeks, raising babies who swim before they can walk. No phones, no rent, just constant motion and fish breath. But don't get too romantic. Life here isn't all synchronized swimming and sibling cuddles. There are black caimans the size of SUVs, anacondas thicker than your thigh, and the occasional human with a gun and no understanding of local ecology. The giant otter may be top tier on the cuteness scale, but survival still requires sharp teeth and sharper instincts. As the family moves on, you follow at a distance. The forest sways above you, whispering with rain. Somewhere behind a curtain of vines, the youngest cub lets out a high-pitched squeal, probably just stepped on something squishy. The others respond instantly, zipping back, checking, fussing. All clear. Just drama. You keep moving, slower now. The otters vanish and reappear like ghosts, slipping between branches and under fallen logs. You glimpse their pale throat patches, each one unique, like fingerprints. Scientists use them to identify individuals. Some otters have stripes, some splotches, some what look like upside-down question marks. One had a patch shaped like a guitar, though it didn't improve his musical ability. Speaking of humans, we didn't really notice giant otters until surprisingly late. Despite their size and volume, they're elusive. Until the 20th century, they were just blurry rumors for most of the world. Then came the fur traders, naturally, and suddenly otters weren't mysterious anymore, they were valuable. But that's a horror story for another section. Right now, the river opens wider. You've drifted into a calm lagoon, moonlight scattered across its surface like spilled glitter. The otter family gathers at the center, forming a loose circle. One dives. Two follow. Bubbles rise. Then a splash, someone's caught something. They erupt in noise, triumphant squeals, splashing, play fighting over the prize. It's a catfish, limp and twitching. The youngest tries to sneak a bite and gets tail slapped for his trouble. The matriarch doesn't even look up. She gets her own fish. And just when you think you've seen enough, something nudges your leg underwater. It's the judgmental one again. He floats there, inches from your face, eyes unblinking. Then he blows a stream of bubbles and vanishes. You exhale, realizing you were holding your breath. Welcome to the jungle, otter style. You're still gliding, slow, quiet, following the wake of a family that never stays still for long. The water's darker now, deeper, and the trees lean in overhead like nosy eavesdroppers. Somewhere behind you, a branch cracks. Somewhere ahead, a splash. But the otters? They don't seem bothered. They're hungry. What you're watching now is less a stroll and more a floating buffet line. The family fans out in a V-shape, matriarch in the middle. Everyone has their place. This is the moment when playtime shuts off and hunting mode kicks in. Except, being giant otters, even hunting looks like a chaotic pool party. One dives. Another follows with a sharp, squeaky chirp. Then there's a flash of movement under the surface, long, lean bodies twisting like ink in water. These guys are built for this. Their legs are stubby on land, but in the water? They're torpedoes. Webbed feet act like paddles. The tail? That's their rudder and throttle in one. You try to track them, but they vanish into silt and swirl. One bursts up with a fish flailing in its jaws. It's a characin, slippery and stupid, caught mid-nap. The otter doesn't even stop swimming. It throws back its head, chomps down, and you hear the crunch from here. Dinner time. The rest of the clan surfaces in a frenzy, each grabbing something or helping harass a school into a corner. They work like wolves, pushing prey toward each other, blocking escape routes, using teamwork and teeth. And the noise? Pure chaos. Chirps, snorts, and a weird sound that's halfway between a sneeze and a kazoo. Let's be honest, it's not a subtle affair. Otters aren't quiet hunters. They don't need to be. They're fast, coordinated, and operate like they've rehearsed this all season. One holds a fish, another tries to steal it, then a third barrels in like the world's furriest linebacker and settles the matter by biting both. Fair enough. Here's the thing. In giant otter families, eating is a social event. Not quite a potluck. More of a rowdy free-for-all where the strongest get first dibs and the youngest squeal until someone pities them. You'd think they'd eat separately to avoid competition. Nope. They snack together, squabble over leftovers, and then curl up in a snuggly, fish-breathed cuddle puddle afterward. If you're imagining dinner at your own house, you're probably not far off. And then there's the matriarch. She floats to one side, crunching through a larger catch like it personally offended her. No one messes with her portion. She earned that fish. She's kept this family alive, trained them, defended them, moved dens every few weeks, and still has time to keep an eye on that one cousin who always swims too close to caiman nests. Fun tidbit, a group of otters is called a rump, which sounds cute until you've seen what a giant otter's teeth can do. Their bite force is nothing to laugh at, somewhere between a pit bull and a snapping turtle, and they'll use it to crack bones or rip through armored catfish. Nature handed them the tools, and they got real good at using them. And while you watch them devour the river's buffet, here's a mainstream historical fact to chew on. In the 19th century, naturalists were baffled by these animals. European explorers wrote frantic notes back home about giant beavers or water wolves. One report described them as tiger otters because they were fast, vicious, and striped. Striped, of course, referring to the pale patch under their chins, not because they had jungle cat ambitions. But the name stuck in some places. So, yes, somewhere out there, they're still called tiger otters. Back to your current scene. The water's now full of scales, floating bits of fish, and occasional pieces of fish head that nobody wanted. You're thankful they don't eat mammals or birds. They're strictly piscivores, which is just a fancy way to say fish nerds. They eat up to 10 pounds a day per otter. That's like you eating 4 pizzas and swimming laps between bites. They need that energy. Swimming all day burns through calories like crazy. And raising babies? Even worse. Speaking of which, you glance over and spot a juvenile trying to catch something. Tail thrashing, eyes wide, completely failing. It misses. Tries again. Misses again. Its sibling laughs, or at least lets out a squeaky sound that feels like laughing, and takes a casual swipe at the floundering fish instead. Eventually, the little one gives up and swims over to Mom, whining. She ignores him, then finally lets him gnaw a bit off her leftovers. That's parenting, jungle edition. But not everything here runs like clockwork. Scholars still debate whether this kind of cooperative hunting evolved from pure family bonding or necessity. Is it instinct? Learned behavior? A bit of both? Some studies suggest they pass down techniques. Different clans might have different hunting strategies based on habitat, prey, even personalities. Like local culinary traditions, but with more teeth. The session winds down. Bellies are full. The romping slows. One by one, they start to float instead of swim, on their backs, heads tilted back, legs drifting like seaweed. You could swear one of them burped. Fish-flavored dreams await. You float there too, water lapping softly against your sides. The air feels heavier now. Humid, sleepy. The buzz of insects takes over again, replacing the squeaky riot of dinner time. You close your eyes for a second. Just a second. And something pokes your foot. You flinch and look down to find the smallest otter of the group investigating your toes with absolute disgust. It sniffs, backs off, sneezes. You've been judged. The clan begins to move on, bellies rounded, chatter low and contented. They're heading for a sandbar to groom and nap. You follow, slower now. The current is soft, like a warm lullaby. You glance up once more at the moon. It's shifted since you started, higher now, spilling silver across the canopy. You realize hours have passed. You've been underwater, sort of, the whole time. Not in a scary way. Just submerged in a world you weren't really meant to be part of. But they let you watch. That's enough for tonight. You're lying back now, half submerged against a sandbar, toes wrinkled, eyelids drifting downward. The water's warm and slow, like someone melted a tepid bath over the forest floor. The otters are sprawled out near you, belly up, belly down, half grooming, half napping. And they will not. Shut. Seriously. You thought this was your moment of peace, but apparently post-dinner gossip is mandatory. One lets out a soft chirp, another trills in response, and soon it's a full-on jungle group chat, just without the mute button. Here's what no one warned you about. Giant otters are loud. Not just a little noisy. We're talking 22 distinct vocalizations, at least. That's what scientists have cataloged, but frankly, the otters probably have their own slang we haven't cracked yet. They squeak, whistle, bark, hum, scream, yelp, moan, and make this odd huffing sound that's either a warning or a passive-aggressive sigh. Hard to tell. Right now, they're in what you'd call low-key chatter mode. It's like listening to a bunch of gossipy roommates whispering under their breath. The tone rises and falls with no clear purpose. Every now and then, someone snorts like they remembered something hilarious. You wonder if they're talking about you. Probably. The weird part? It's not random. These sounds mean things. Some are warnings, sharp staccato bursts when danger's near. Others are coordinating calls. Left flank, you go there, I'll herd the fish this way. And then there are the affectionate ones, high-pitched, almost sing-songy, usually exchanged between mates or between parents and cubs. You watch as one adult slowly nuzzles its snoring cub and lets out a barely audible chirp. The cub doesn't move, just flops deeper into its nap like a deflated balloon. You've seen this before. Somewhere. It's the same way people mumble to sleeping dogs. We all need to be heard, even when no one's listening. But don't romanticize it too much. Sometimes they just argue. There's a short spat now. One otter tries to climb over another and gets barked at. Not a cute bark. A sharp, guttural get-off-me meatloaf kind of bark. Then a rapid chatter of defensive trills. Then silence. Social hierarchy re-established. And here's the kicker. They recognize each other by voice. Just like humans, each otter's call has a signature pitch and rhythm. Even in dense jungle or murky water, family members can pick out who's talking. Some researchers even think giant otters may have dialects, subtle regional differences in how they pronounce their squeaks. Imagine South American otter accents. Roll that R. Fringe theory? Maybe. But consider this. In one isolated population near Suriname, otters use longer whistles than their cousins downriver. Coincidence? Historians still argue whether that points to cultural learning or just evolutionary drift. Either way, it's more complicated than just animals making noise. Meanwhile, the youngest cub has now climbed onto its sibling and is rhythmically biting its ear. The victim lets out a low, throaty groan. You think that means stop, but the biter just squeals louder, possibly shouting, "I regret nothing." Eventually, the matriarch intervenes. One chirp from her and the cub slinks off with the overdone drama of a soap opera exit. Let's talk sensory overload for a second. The air is still thick, wet leaves, fish oil, and muddy roots fermenting in the dark. But now there's also otter breath. Imagine sardines left in a lunchbox. Multiply that by 7 wet mouths. It's potent. They don't seem to mind. In fact, they communicate through scent too. Ever noticed how they rub their necks and chins against rocks or logs? That's scent marking. They're leaving messages, "We were here, this log is ours," or, "If you're reading this, stay out." Their anal glands produce a secretion called spraint. Yes, that's a real word. Spraint. Congratulations, that's now in your mental dictionary forever. Some clans spraint more aggressively than others. One particularly territorial group near the Pantanal was documented leaving scent marks every 50 meters. That's like tagging your locker, desk, and every bathroom stall at school just to remind people who runs the place. But back to the vocal drama, because it just got interesting. A whistle pierces the quiet. Everyone freezes. Heads up. Noses sniffing the air. It's not panic, just alert. The matriarch lets out a low hum. The rest echo it. They rearrange into a loose circle, youngest in the middle, adults facing out. You scan the tree line. Nothing. But they heard something. A distant snap of a branch? A ripple in the wrong direction? Otters don't rely on sight. Their eyes aren't bad, but their ears and whiskers do the heavy lifting. Whiskers, by the way, are called vibrissae, sensitive enough to detect movement and vibration through water. Basically, they have underwater radar on their faces. And their ears? Small, round, always alert. The tension fades. No threat, just a false alarm. The formation melts. Someone farts in the water, don't ask who, and the mood resets. Back to grooming and gossip. You realize something then. This noise, this constant babble isn't chaos. It's cohesion. This is how they are. Talking keeps them together. It's reassurance. It's boundary setting. It's their version of saying, I've got your back. Even when it sounds like a chorus of malfunctioning squeaky toys. In a strange way, it's calming. Like white noise, but messy. You let it wash over you. Chirps, trills, low hums, soft whistles. The jungle pulses in the background. Leaves whisper, frogs chirp. But the otter sounds dominate. And slowly, without realizing it, your heart rate sinks to the rhythm. You're part of this now. A floating log among logs. An honorary listener in the world's weirdest group chat. Someone yawns loudly. Another mimics it. Then two roll into each other, forming a tangled, soggy figure eight of fur. The youngest lets out one final whimper, probably complaining about bedtime. No one answers. You shift on your perch. The moon's drifting behind cloud cover now, casting the world in dim gray. The air smells like wet bark and riverweed. And the chatter? Fading. Not silent. Never silent. Just soft enough for dreams. You're trying to nap again. Really. But something rank just drifted through the air like a wet sock dipped in expired fish. You sit up, blink hard, and realize you've wandered into a bit of an invisible war zone. Not bullets and bombs. More like musk and pee. Because here's the deal with giant otters. Their territory drama is loud, smelly, and incredibly petty. They don't just live in the jungle. They own it, at least they think they do. Each family group lays claim to a stretch of river like it's a beachfront property, and they guard it the way overzealous neighbors guard freshly mowed lawns. We're talking patrols, sentry duty, boundary inspections, the whole soap opera. The otter clan you've been tagging along with? They're entering contested ground. You notice it first in their posture. Heads lower, movements sharper. The playful flopping vanishes. They form a line again, tighter this time. Every so often, one stops to sniff a log, then huff and roll in a very performative way. Ugh, they were here. What they're reacting to is scent marking again. Only this time, it's not their own. Another group passed through here, and the evidence is fresh. Scent piles, clumps of fishy secretions mixed with urine, at the banks. Sometimes they smear it on rocks. Sometimes logs. Sometimes just the dirt. A biological group text that says, this area is occupied. Trespassers will be side-eyed aggressively. One otter, a younger male, gets a bit too enthusiastic. He dives nose first into a particularly pungent patch, then immediately sneezes, hacks, and shakes his head like he regrets all his choices. You can relate. But why go through all this trouble? Why not just share? Because territory equals survival. It's about fish supply, safe denning sites, and raising cubs without interference. Giant otters are social, but only with their own family. Strangers are a threat, not just to food and space, but to the actual cohesion of the group. Too many otters in one area, and things go full soap opera. The fairs, abandoned cubs, stolen fish. The drama writes itself. Historians still argue whether territorial aggression in otters is a hardwired behavior or a response to declining habitat. Some researchers believe they were more relaxed before rivers got fragmented by humans. Others think otters have always been a little dramatic. After all, they descend from solitary ancestors. Pack life may still feel like a group project they didn't sign up for. Tension spikes. Your otter crew has reached a bend in the river where scent marks aren't just here and there. They're everywhere. This is the border. A biological fence line. There's even a scratched-up log coated in overlapping scents, like the otter version of graffiti-tagged turf. It practically screams, no trespassing. Then, just to make things even more fun, a call rings out. It's sharp, clipped, aggressive. Not from your group. From over there, behind a thicket of reeds. Another family is nearby. Instant reaction. Your group fans out, shoulders rising above the water. You'd think they were gearing up for battle, but they're not stupid. Most encounters don't end in fights. That's too risky. Giant otters prefer intimidation. Cue the display. Your crew begins a chorus of low growls and snorts. Their heads bob rhythmically as they push water with their chests, creating menacing ripples. One even rears up a little, showing off its throat patch like a badge. You see this? I'm not just cute. I'm somebody. The other group answers. More growls, followed by a series of sharp barks that echo down the river like weird gunshots. You hear splashing, someone swimming aggressively. Then silence. Everyone freezes. This moment? It's a standoff. No one wants to escalate. Not unless they have the numbers, the size, or a grudge that needs settling. These aren't impulsive animals. They calculate. Your group lingers for a beat longer, then slowly backs away. No retreat, no shame, just a strategic withdrawal. Pride mostly intact. Still, you can feel the adrenaline. Even the youngest cubs seem more alert now, paddling close to the matriarch's tail like ducklings. You follow, slightly breathless. Even from the sidelines, territorial spats are intense. On your way back upriver, your group pauses to overmark the border. That means taking a big whiff of the enemy's scent piles and leaving their own right on top. Otter diplomacy, passive-aggressive and weirdly smelly. And yes, they do this a lot. A family might patrol its stretch of river multiple times a day, reapplying their signature scent like someone paranoid about their cologne wearing off. That's dedication. Fringe fact? Some otters roll in their own spraint piles. Not kidding. They'll coat their bodies in the stuff, then go about their day like that's totally normal. The reasoning? Likely to amplify their scent during tense encounters. Nothing says alpha energy like a full-body stink cloud. Eventually, the group relaxes. The tension dissipates. But they've made their point. You notice one older male swimming to the side. He's unusually scarred, with a torn ear and a thick ridge along one flank where fur doesn't grow quite right. The story's obvious. He's seen real fights. Territorial disputes don't usually end in violence, but when they do, it gets nasty fast. Sharp claws, crushing jaws, underwater ambushes. Most fights are short, brutal, and over in under a minute. But the damage lingers. Still, this group is intact. Intact and tired. As the heat of the day deepens, the otters retreat into a quiet inlet, a place half covered in lily pads and mosquito haze. One by one, they flop onto a half-submerged log, pile into each other like wet socks, and start grooming again. Back to normal. You ease yourself onto the edge of the bank, careful not to slip into another scent patch. The water's calmer now. No signs of the rival group. The only thing moving is a bird overhead, white, long-beaked, disinterested in the politics below. In this moment of quiet, you realize something else. All those jokes about smelly spraint and overdramatic barking? That's how these animals have survived. Communication, coordination, boundaries. A loud, messy language of scent and sound that somehow works in a world that's constantly trying to kill them. It's not elegant, but it's effective. And the next time someone accuses you of being territorial over your coffee mug or side of the bed, just tell them you're channeling your inner giant otter. You wake to tiny squeaks, short, needy, high-pitched sounds that don't quite match the rhythm of the adult chatter you've grown used to. You open your eyes, and there they are, wriggling, pink, half-bald, and completely helpless. You're crouched near a den entrance now. Well, not inside it, because the matriarch would maul you into river mulch. But close enough to see flashes of fur and twitching limbs. This is the nursery. It's warm, damp, and smells like wet leaves and overworked otter moms. Newborn giant otters don't hit the water immediately. For the first few weeks, they live in dry dens tucked into the riverbank, dugout chambers, or repurposed root networks hidden under vegetation. It's cramped but cozy, and louder than you'd expect. Cubs squeak constantly, like malfunctioning rubber duckies. It's cute, but if you had to live in there, you'd probably lose your mind. The family doesn't mind. They're obsessed. Out here, the jungle keeps breathing. Cicadas whine. Trees drip. The river hums past like a giant exhale. But inside that den, everything revolves around those little sausages. You can tell the cubs are only a few weeks old, eyes mostly closed, fur patchy, limbs wobbly. They can't swim yet, can't really walk. They sort of flop. But the adults take turns doting on them anyway, carrying, licking, fluffing, adjusting bedding. Think helicopter parenting, but with more fish breath. And everyone gets a job. It's not just mom and dad raising these jelly beans. Siblings, uncles, even crabby old aunties who've clearly seen some stuff, all of them pitch in. This is called cooperative breeding, and giant otters are one of the few mammals that do it consistently. Even wolves don't commit this hard. One adult lumbers out of the den, carrying a half-eaten fish in her mouth. She dunks it in the river like she's trying to rinse it. She's not. It's just habit, then disappears back into the darkness. Probably trying to sneak in a feeding while the cubs are distracted. No such luck. One of them lets out a squeal like it's been personally betrayed. The others rush over. All 4 adults huddle in, forming a wall of fur and flippers. You can't see what's happening inside, but based on the noises, someone got stepped on and someone else pooped dramatically in protest. This is normal. Otter families are full of drama, especially when cubs are involved. Here's a historical side note for you. In the early 20th century, British naturalist Gerald Durrell described his time with a tame giant otter in British Guiana. He called it the most intelligent, charming, and utterly exasperating creature he'd ever worked with. Apparently, the otter would throw temper tantrums if its food bowl was even slightly late. Some things never change. Back in the den, the cubs are starting to get more coordinated. One manages to roll fully onto its stomach, wobble forward, and immediately faceplant into another sibling. Progress. They'll be in the den for 2 to 3 months before they even attempt their first swim. And when that day comes, you'd better believe the whole family shows up. It's not so much a swimming lesson as a baptism by puddle. Push the baby into the water, surround it, and cheer when it doesn't drown. You'll see that soon enough. But for now, you're watching the slow process of growing up, nap by nap, nibble by nibble. The cubs mostly eat regurgitated fish for now, yep, which the adults produce like vending machines. Just don't think too hard about it. You notice one cub is slightly bigger than the others, already trying to clamber over everyone, already biting tails and squeaking louder than necessary. The classic older sibling. The runt, meanwhile, has barely moved. It snoozes between 2 adults, legs twitching as it dreams of probably nothing yet. Fringe fact for you, giant otters, unlike most mustelids, don't store food. No hoarding, no buried snacks. Everything is fresh or nothing. That makes raising cubs during a bad fish season even harder. If the river dries or the prey vanishes, the whole den suffers. That's why cooperative care matters so much. More eyes, more fish, more survival. Suddenly, you hear a sound from deeper in the forest. A low rumble, distant, but heavy. Thunder? You feel it in the ground too. The adults freeze. Then it comes again. A long, drawn-out bellow. The matriarch bolts from the den. Not away from the sound, toward it. She lets out a sharp warning bark, and the rest of the adults scatter into defensive positions. You stay still. Very still. You won't see the jaguar. Not tonight. It's just letting the forest know it's awake. But the otters don't take chances. One by one, they disappear into the undergrowth, checking the perimeter, surfacing again after several tense minutes. Finally, the all clear, a series of low hums. The cubs haven't moved. One is snoring. This right here? This is parenting in the wild. Constant vigilance. Constant noise. No sleep. And fish for every meal. You can't help but admire them. They're ridiculous, just prone to overreaction. But their system works. Giant otter cubs are born useless, and within a year, they're agile, fast, and already helping with the next batch. Survival isn't about being strong. It's about being surrounded by people, or otters, who give a damn whether you make it. Night settles in again, thick and quiet. The family is curled together on a flat patch of dirt just outside the den. Cubs in the middle, adults on the edge. One stirs, raises its head, lets out a low sigh, then nuzzles back into the pile. Even the jungle sounds quieter now. The river barely moves. A few frogs whisper. Somewhere, a branch creaks under the weight of something sleepy. You close your eyes. No drama this time. Just soft fur, quiet squeaks, and the warm breath of a clan that, against the odds, has figured out how to raise babies in a place where most things get eaten before they hit puberty. Good luck, little ones. You'll need it. You don't make a sound, but you feel it. Something out there has changed. It's subtle at first. The otters freeze mid-groom. One pauses with a paw raised. Another turns its head, slowly, ears twitching. The youngest cub, oblivious as always, lets out a high-pitched yawn and starts chewing on a leaf. The forest, though, has gone silent. You sit still, the way you would if someone whispered your name in a dark room. Everything's holding its breath. There are rules out here, and one of them is this. If the jungle goes quiet, something dangerous just entered the chat. And the otters? They know all the usual suspects. You hear the faintest ripple behind the reeds. The family shifts position. A few slides soundlessly into the water, flanking the den. It's not panic. It's protocol. They've done this before. Because when you're a 6-foot-long river predator that smells like a sardine candle and screams like a toddler, you attract attention. And not the good kind. Let's start with enemies below. You scan the waterline, trying to spot what they've already sensed. A glint. 2 eyes like wet marbles, just barely above the surface. A black caiman. Ancient, armored, and entirely capable of dragging an adult otter under with one swipe of its tail. But the otters don't flee. One of the adults swims directly toward it, head raised, tail low. It barks, short and loud. Another joins. Then a third. They move in unison, forming AV. Suddenly, it's not prey being stalked, it's mob justice. The caiman hangs there a moment longer, decides this dinner is not worth the dental work, and slides backward into the dark. The otters don't chase it. They don't need to. That was the point. A fringe behavior? Maybe. But it's been documented, otters mobbing predators far larger than themselves. Not just crocodilians, anacondas too. That's right, a 20-foot snake? Not ideal, but not impossible. There's a story from researchers near the Madre de Dios River. A group of otters harassed an anaconda for over 20 minutes until it slithered off looking thoroughly done with everyone's nonsense. Historians still argue whether these mobbing behaviors are tactical or emotional. Are they calculated group defense? Or is it personal? Revenge for a sibling lost, a cub snatched? Truth is, the line between survival and sentiment gets blurry out here. Now, that was the water. But let's not forget the trees. Because enemies above are just as bad. Harpy eagles. Massive, silent, and built like feathery tanks. With talons as long as steak knives, they can pluck monkeys from trees mid-swing. A young otter left exposed? Easy pickings. Which is why the clan doesn't just nap anywhere. They sleep in tangled root systems, under overhangs, inside burrows. One adult always stays semi-awake, ears flicking, nose twitching. They don't trust the sky. For good reason. Even during play, you'll notice otter pups are constantly herded inward, like fuzzy bowling pins. Every splash is monitored, every squeak answered. It's not just parenting. It's paranoia, earned over millennia. And then we get to enemies everywhere else. Jaguars. You catch another rumble tonight, low, drawn out, but closer than before. The otters stiffen again. You swear one of them growls. The kind of sound that vibrates in the ribs. Jaguars aren't theoretical here. They're real. They swim. They climb. They ambush. One swipe, one bite, and it's over. A giant otter isn't defenseless, but one-on-one? It's no contest. That's why they don't let it get that far. Giant otters see the world differently. Their survival isn't just about reacting. It's about anticipating. They're constantly talking, constantly scanning, constantly building a mental map of every ripple, scent, and shadow in their territory. They don't relax. They can't afford to. And you? You're just sitting there trying not to breathe too loud. Still, even under this weight, they manage moments of lightness. One of the subadults swims over to the nervous cub and gently nudges it. The cub squeaks, The adult nudges again, and suddenly the two are wrestling in slow motion, backflipping, tail thumping, laughing if otters can laugh. Because that's the paradox. They live in fear and joy. Every day is a mix of what's for dinner and will something eat us while we eat it. Let's zoom out for a second. Here's a mainstream fact. The Amazon basin, their main habitat, has one of the highest predator densities on Earth. If it's not scaled, fanged, or venomous, it's probably hiding claws. The fact that any species thrives here, let alone with babies in tow, is impressive. The fact that it does so while yelling constantly is borderline miraculous. And yet, giant otters have carved out their niche. Not with brute force, not with silence, but with family, strategy, and straight-up attitude. Now you're watching the family reassemble. The threat has passed. One of them rolls onto its back and rubs its belly on a submerged log, like stress relief. Another swims a slow lap, rechecking the perimeter. A few settle into a familiar cuddle pile. The cub tries to climb on top of the adult who just saved its life. Gets denied. Tries again. Succeeds. Immediately falls asleep. You sit back. The sky's dark now. Proper dark. The stars peek through gaps in the canopy. The air is heavier, laced with mist and leaf sweat. You can hear frogs again. Crickets. The jungle has exhaled. The lesson here isn't subtle. Life is hard. The jungle doesn't care. Predators wait in every direction, and sometimes the only thing between you and disappearance is a sibling who bites back first. But you don't survive here by being lucky. You survive by being ready, but connected, protective to a fault. And if all else fails, you scream in someone's face and hope they blink first. You wake to a splash, sharp, fast, unmistakable. The kind of splash that says something just died or is about to. Before your brain fully checks in, your body's already responding. You lift your head, push through reeds, and peer across the water. Dawn's just brushing the horizon, murky light and thick fog, like someone smeared river mud over the sky. But there's motion out there. A ripple, then another, and then a chase. Giant otters, 5 of them, cutting through the water in a loose formation. Like torpedoes with fur. No chatter, no games, just business. You catch a flash of silver between them. A peacock base, big one, probably 10 pounds, darting left, doubling back right, making a break for deeper cover. Doesn't matter. One otter surfaces ahead of it. Another cuts it off from behind. Then, synchronized chaos. 2 dive, pushing water aside in white arcs. One kicks upward, flipping mid-twist. Bubbles rise. A tail slaps the surface. And then, silence. You wait. The biggest otter bursts up with the fish clamped sideways in its jaws, tail flopping, gills heaving. Victory. The others follow, grinning with that weirdly smug otter face. You swear one of them winks at you. Probably not. But still, let's talk hunting. Here's the thing. Giant otters don't just eat fish, they work for it. They're what biologists call cooperative hunters. Which sounds very official until you realize it's just 5 angry meat tubes playing aquatic chess against a creature with fins. Most fish aren't dumb. They know the terrain. They know the hideouts. But otters? Otters know the fish. They remember where you like to hide. Where you panicked last time. What time you're dumb enough to swim near the log again. They plan. They coordinate. They don't rush. But when it's time, they're relentless. Here's a mainstream fact. Adult giant otters eat about 6 to 9 pounds of fish a day. That's a lot of protein to catch in the wild, especially when the wild bites back. So every hunt is both essential and exhausting. They've got their favorites, catfish, cichlids, characins. But they're opportunists too. If it's slippery and swims, it's probably on the menu. In lean seasons, even crustaceans and snakes aren't off limits. There's a record of one group downing an electric eel. Regret probably came immediately after. Historians still argue whether the otter's team strategies are instinctual or learned behavior passed down by family groups. Some say it's coded into their DNA. Others point out how different families develop unique tactics. Some favor chasing and flushing, others rely on cornering and ambush. Nature versus nurture in a fur-wrapped fish war. The best part? They celebrate. After the kill, there's splashing, tumbling, even a little fish tug-of-war before it's torn apart. You watch them tear the base into chunks with alarming speed. No table manners. Just sharp teeth and zero patience. One otter swims by with half the fish sticking out of its mouth like a cigar. Another tries to hoard a piece but is immediately dogpiled by two juveniles. The cub gets the tail and squeals in triumph. The adult sighs and lets it go. Now, if you're imagining something vicious, hold up. Yes, they're fast. Yes, they've got jaws strong enough to crunch bone. But there's also grace here. Every move is calculated, every dive intentional. Even their breath control is on point. They can stay submerged for up to a couple minutes at a time. Not record-breaking, but enough to do serious damage. And it's not just physical prowess. It's the communication. Clicks, whistles, puffs, underwater squeaks. It's a full-blown hunting dialect, like quarterbacks calling plays mid-sprint. Researchers have identified over 20 distinct vocalizations, and that's just the ones we've caught. One scientist called it liquid conversation. Another described it as somewhere between dolphins and really judgmental birds. Fringe tidbit? Some indigenous Amazonian tribes believe otters speak to the river spirits, and sometimes are the river spirits. After watching them work a hunt like this, you kind of get it. You follow them as they move downstream. The mood shifts. A younger otter stirs up a school of tiny fish, minnows, really, and instead of eating them, starts spinning through them like it's in a Disney movie. Another joins, trying to outspin its sibling. It's absurd, and oddly beautiful. Even when they're not hungry, they practice. Every splash has a purpose. Every failed grab builds skill. You watch as the matriarch slows and circles a floating branch. She dives, comes up with nothing, tries again. A moment later, she surfaces with a small fish and immediately tosses it to a younger otter, who fumbles it like a rookie. Another chance. Another lesson. Because yes, hunting is a team sport, but the best teams are built, not born. They hunt early, nap through the blistering midday heat, and pick back up again in late afternoon. It's a rhythm, synced with the forest. Sometimes you can hear them sharpening up for a hunt before you even see them. Chittering, stretching, scent marking. Like pre-game warm-ups for a bunch of damp, angry gymnasts. You glance up. The sun's pushing through the fog now, lighting the water in weird gold streaks. The otters vanish and reappear like ghosts. You think you've counted all of them, but then one pops up from nowhere with half a piranha. Where did it even come from? The jungle doesn't answer. One last note before you drift again. You know how in action movies there's always that one scene where the heroes work in perfect unison, every move synced, no wasted energy? That's what this was. But smellier, and wetter, and real, and somehow more impressive than any choreographed fight scene, because these guys aren't acting. They're surviving. You blink and the otters are gone. Not far, just tucked into their midday retreat. The sun is oppressive now, turning the river's surface into molten glass. Even the air feels heavy. You can taste the humidity, feel it pressing into your clothes, clinging to your skin like wet leaves. The otters disappear during this part of the day, slipping into burrows or shaded overhangs like ghosts evaporating into shadow. They've earned a break. You watch them chase, kill, eat, wrestle, and raise hell before most people have had coffee. So now, we talk real estate. Because for giant otters, territory isn't just about space. It's identity. It's protection. It's how they eat, breed, sleep, and exist. Lose that, and they lose everything. You trace the riverbank quietly. No sudden moves. Not because you're scared, they're napping, but because this whole zone feels claimed. It smells claimed if we're being real. The otters mark like they're getting paid for it. With glandular secretions rubbed onto logs, branches, rocks, anything really. The smell has been described as fishy popcorn, which sounds kind of whimsical until you realize it's how they say, "This belongs to us, approach and die." Territory size varies, but we're usually talking about several kilometers of river. Linear, not square. Think stretch of water, not chunk of land. Depending on fish density and family size, a single group can control up to 20 kilometers. That's like owning both banks of a river, front yard to back, in a neighborhood full of apex predators. And they patrol it, constantly. You see scratch marks on the trunks near a popular sunning rock. Not from playing, from asserting dominance. 1 claw mark says, "We live here." 2 says, "We'll fight you." 3 is an invitation to regret your life choices. They're not always so polite. Encounters with rival groups are intense. It's not hypothetical, it happens. A foreign otter wanders too far upriver, and the resident group erupts like a furry SWAT team. You can hear the escalation from a mile away. The clicks turn shrill, the whistles go ultrasonic, the water slaps like fists. And then, collision. It's a flurry of teeth and fur, underwater grapples, throat biting, tail slapping. These aren't brief scuffles. These are clan wars. Injuries are common. Deaths? Not unheard of. One fringe anecdote from a research team. They witnessed a fight where an invading male was driven out and then stalked for 3 days. No food, no rest, no reprieve. Just constant harassment until he vanished. It was personal. Historians still argue whether these territorial behaviors are evolving more aggressively due to shrinking habitat. As human interference cuts deeper into the Amazon, otters are forced into tighter spaces. Smaller rivers. Shared resources. Less buffer room. That means more fights. More border friction. More risk. Territory isn't just space anymore. It's survival with a time limit. Now, not all land is equal. They choose areas with plenty of cover, fish-rich shallows, multiple escape routes, and ideally, dry season refuges. You probably don't think about it, but these otters have to survive the wet season's flood and the dry season's drought. That means some stretches of river they love now will become sandy death traps later, or disappear completely. So they plan ahead. Burrows are dug into high, stable riverbanks. Sleeping dens are spaced between feeding zones. Some even have nursery coves, shallow backwaters perfect for teaching cubs to swim without risking predator exposure. You notice this cove you're sitting near? It's calm, slow-moving, flanked by dense ferns and 2 well-used trails that lead into the trees. Textbook example. They've made this work. And then there's the lodges. Okay, not beaver-level architecture, but they do engineer their homes. Dens are often dug into steep banks, several meters above typical waterline. Multiple entrances, interior chambers, hidden exits, like furry bunkers. Mud, leaves, dry roots, they even pad certain sleeping spots. One study found an otter family that had used the same den complex for 6 consecutive years. That's not improvisation. That's investment. They don't just claim land, they cultivate it. But here's the twist. Not everything they build is physical. There's also the social territory, the web of scent, memory, and presence that follows them wherever they go. You've probably noticed it by now. Each group has a rhythm, a vibe, a culture even. Vocal patterns, play styles, risk thresholds. This family's particularly loud, particularly bold. Others? Shyer, more reserved. And you can feel it in the way they move through their land. Because land ownership isn't just about who gets to fish where. It's about which group gets to define the rules in that space. They don't fence it off. They broadcast. Constantly. Even now, deep in the heat of afternoon, when everything feels still, you catch a faint whistle. Someone's awake. Doing a check-in. We're here. Not aggressive, not scared. Just marking presence. You lean against a tree trunk and feel it vibrate. There's a hum to this forest. A kind of layered awareness. Otters aren't the biggest, strongest, or scariest creatures out here. But they've carved a place by never shutting up, never backing down, and never going alone. And now that you've been shadowing them for days, the territory feels familiar. Like you could almost walk it blindfolded. Almost. You know the bend where they stash leftover fish bones. The sandbar where the cubs learned to float. The log with the claw marks. The rock with that weird smell. You're part of the map now. Whether you wanted to be or not. And that's the point. Giant otters don't just exist in a space. They imprint on it. Loudly, sharply, permanently. So when you step through their world, even as an outsider, you carry some of that with you. Even if you leave, even if they forget, the land remembers. The sun is dipping low, casting long shadows across the river. You're back on the water, following your otter crew as they shift into evening mode. The light is softer, the air cooler, and the sounds of the jungle start to swell. Frogs tuning up, insects kicking off their night shows. It's fishing time again. But this isn't the frantic, high-energy hunt of the morning or the afternoon's casual strolls. This is serious business. You watch the group split up, smaller teams working separate stretches of the river. Each otter moves with a distinct purpose, scanning beneath the water, feeling currents, reading the subtle clues fish leave in their wake. It's hunting, but with nuance. A delicate game of hide and seek where patience is just as important as speed. One otter slows near a cluster of submerged roots. You see it freeze, muscles taut. Then a precise lunge, a quick snap, and a small armored catfish flails briefly before surrendering. The otter flips it in the air, catches it in its jaws, and surfaces with a triumphant chuff. Nearby, another otter nudges a pile of leaves and sediment, stirring up a cloud of silt. Fish scatter in every direction, except the one hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to dart past the disturbance and into the jaws of a waiting sibling. This kind of cooperative hunting takes more than strength. It demands understanding, communication, and trust. You realize just how much otters rely on each other, not just for catching food, but for survival. They have to be in sync, reading each other's signals, covering blind spots, sharing the rewards. No lone wolves here. Which brings you to one of the juiciest debates among scholars. How much of giant otter behavior is instinct, and how much is culture? Some researchers argue that their hunting techniques are largely learned, passed from generation to generation like family recipes. Others think there's a heavy genetic component, with instincts guiding most moves. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. A complex dance of nature and nurture. There's a quirky side note too. In one remote study, a group of otters was observed deliberately teaching their young to mimic fishing motions with sticks and leaves. Play became practice. Practice became survival. You chuckle. Imagine a tiny otter with a stick, looking like a clumsy fisherman. It's absurd, but it makes sense. Teaching is survival. Suddenly, the water erupts with splashes. Your group has cornered a school of piranhas. The adults move carefully, using their bodies like nets. The piranhas flash silver and red, darting in tight formations. But the otter's coordination wins out. One by one, the piranhas are caught and dispatched. You notice something else. The otters don't just eat the fish whole. They tear off the spiny fins, toss aside the scales, and delicately nibble on the soft parts. They have to. Piranhas aren't exactly bite-friendly. This care extends to cubs, too. Adults break down fish into bite-sized pieces, regurgitate when necessary, and make sure the little ones aren't left behind. You watch a cub struggle to swallow a chunk. One adult nudges it gently, encouraging it to keep trying. The cub's persistence pays off. The family is tight-knit, protective, nurturing. It's impossible not to root for them. As the evening fades into night, the otters regroup on a favored sandbar. They pile up, grooming each other under the rising moon. The air fills with their soft whistles and purrs, a lullaby for a wild world. You lean back, letting the river's cool breath wash over you. The jungle feels alive, vast, and full of secrets. And somewhere, deep in the dark, the otters remind you that survival isn't just about muscle or teeth. It's about connection, learning, and a little bit of stubbornness. The night is thick now. Darkness wraps around you like a wet blanket. The river no longer shimmers. It's a slick black mirror reflecting the moon's pale glow. You sit silently, tucked near the water's edge, watching as your giant otters settle into their nighttime routine. Sleep, however, is not a given here. No, the jungle's dark is a puzzle box filled with sounds and shadows that might mean dinner or death. Giant otters, despite their size and skills, are vulnerable when they close their eyes. Their senses sharpen instead of dulling. Every rustle in the leaves, every splash in the water, every distant call sets nerves on edge. The matriarch takes her position near the den's entrance, eyes flickering like a lighthouse beam. A few adults form a loose semicircle around the cubs, their bodies coiled, ready to launch into action if needed. You notice the way their whiskers twitch, like tiny antennae scanning the air. Their nostrils flare, taking in every scent, deciphering friend from foe. There's a strange kind of calm in their vigilance. A tension that's less about fear and more about respect for a world that's always watching. You remember that early historical note. Giant otters have been part of indigenous stories for centuries. Some tribes see them as protectors, symbols of family and loyalty. Others warn their mischievous spirits, prone to trickery and chaos. Those stories seem fitting here. Suddenly, a sharp bark cuts through the night. The signal alarm. The otters spring into motion, moving fluidly, almost rehearsed. No time for hesitation. You look out and see the faintest ripple far upstream. Another group, or maybe a solitary male, prowling the edges of territory. It's late for visitors. The otters don't panic, but they respond. Vocalizations escalate. Whistles, growls, high-pitched yips. It's a conversation, a negotiation, a warning. Then the show begins. You witness a silent dance, a watery war of presence and power. Bodies surface and submerge, tails lash, teeth flash. The attackers circle, the defenders hold their ground. No physical clashes, but the energy is electric. After what feels like forever, the intruders retreat, their signals of defeat clear in low whines and rapid splashes. The clan resumes their positions. The tension slowly bleeds away. You realize this. Giant otters don't just survive the jungle. They negotiate with it day and night. Every encounter, every challenge, every threat is met with strategy and solidarity. You catch a young adult, head lowered, tail flicking nervously. The older otters surround it protectively, a reminder that family means more than just sharing space. It means standing shoulder to shoulder, ready for whatever comes next. And that's the core of their existence. You settle deeper into the mud, feeling the cool dampness seep in. The jungle exhales around you, a lullaby of whispers and rustles. Sleep feels possible here. But you know better. Tomorrow will bring the same mix of beauty and danger. The same need for vigilance and care. But for now, there is quiet. And in that quiet, you can almost hear the pulse of the river, the heartbeat of the otter family, and the rhythm of life itself. The dawn is soft, like a whispered secret, spilling light over the jungle's tangled edges. You're back on the riverbank, following your otter family as they wake from their night's rest, rubbing sleep from their eyes, or whatever the otter equivalent of that is. The morning is slow, deliberate. There's grooming, of course. First slicked, whiskers cleaned, mud wiped away with enthusiastic shakes and licks. But beneath that routine lies something deeper, social bonding. Giant otters are not solitary creatures. Far from it. They thrive on connection. You see it in the way they touch, gentle nudges, intertwined tails, synchronized swims. It's not just affection. It's social glue. The stuff that holds a family together through floodwaters and jaguar threats. There's a mainstream fact to keep in mind here. Giant otters live in stable family groups, usually parents with their offspring from several years. These units can be up to a dozen individuals, but most hover around 5 to 8. Stability is key. Breaking off means a rough go alone. Now, here's a quirky tidbit. Otters have play calls, distinct sounds they use only during roughhousing or social fun. These calls are surprisingly similar across different groups, but some families have unique dialects. Like accents, but wetter. You watch as two subadults chase each other along the shore, squealing and splashing. They barrel into a shallow pool and roll around like oversized puppies. You half expect a splash fight to break out, and it does, complete with dramatic shrieks and lots of tail thwacks. Scholars still debate how much otter play influences survival skills. Is it just fun? Or is it crucial practice for hunting, fighting, and bonding? Probably both. Then the adults shift focus. One heads upriver, nose low to the water. Another surfaces with a freshly caught fish, immediately sharing it with a smaller otter. Sharing isn't just generosity here. It's strategy. Cooperative hunting pays off only if everyone eats. Food sharing cements alliances, soothes disputes, and teaches the young the ropes. The family starts to move, traveling together through a maze of submerged logs and flooded roots. They're on patrol now, remarking boundaries, reinforcing social ties, hunting when opportunity strikes. You notice something subtle. The vocalizations have changed, softer, more nuanced. The click patterns seem like conversation. You imagine they're gossiping about last night's fight or which cub is causing the most trouble. And trouble is everywhere. You spot a juvenile eyeing a squirrel in a tree. Not food, but distraction. It's moments like this you realize how intelligent these animals are, capable of curiosity, mischief, even boredom. Fringe researchers have proposed that giant otters use problem-solving skills on par with primates. Not just to find food, but to navigate social dynamics. One experiment showed otters manipulating puzzle feeders, unlocking compartments in ways that suggest planning ahead. You shake your head, amused. Otters are basically furry little strategists with bad table manners. As the morning thickens into noon, the group settles near a sun-dappled bank. Cubs tumble over each other, practicing swims and chases. Adults watch, noses twitching, occasionally intervening with a sharp bark or gentle correction. You lean back against a tree, feeling the pulse of the river and the family's rhythm. It's chaotic, noisy, unpredictable, but it works. The clan moves as one organism, with individual quirks and a collective heartbeat. And in this wild, messy family, survival isn't about strength or stealth alone. It's about belonging. The day grows hot and sticky, sweat mixing with river mist on your skin as you trail your otter family through a narrow, winding stretch of river. The jungle presses in close, massive trees arching overhead, vines dangling like forgotten decorations, and the air thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. You're acutely aware of the symphony around you, the distant call of howler monkeys, the flutter of wings overhead, and the constant murmur of the river. Amid this jungle orchestra, your otters move with practiced grace, weaving through submerged roots and shallow rapids as if they own the place, which in many ways they do. But here's the kicker: giant otters aren't just opportunistic predators, they're savvy planners. They remember, and they're territorial to a degree that surprises even seasoned researchers. You pause, watching as the matriarch halts at a narrow river bend and lifts her head, nostrils flaring. She surveys the area, then releases a series of sharp whistles. It's a signal, a message encoded in sound that reverberates through the water and forest. Other adults respond in kind, their voices bouncing off trees and rippling across the water's surface. This communication isn't just social, it's tactical. You recall a mainstream fact. Giant otters have a repertoire of at least 20 distinct vocalizations, barks, whistles, hums, and chirps, each with specific meanings. Some warn of danger, others coordinate group movements, and a few are just playful banter. What fascinates you is how these calls form a language complex enough to convey information about location, threat level, and even individual identity. Now, the fringe tidbit. In some cases, otters have been observed mimicking the calls of other species, like river dolphins, to confuse competitors or predators. It's still under debate, but if true, it would be a remarkable example of interspecies acoustic espionage. Historians and biologists alike still debate whether this vocal complexity evolved primarily for social cohesion or survival in a predator-rich environment. The truth probably lies somewhere in the tangled underbrush between those theories. Your otters continue, moving in tight formation, occasionally diving and resurfacing with satisfied grunts and splashes. At one point, a juvenile miscalculates a dive, splashing awkwardly. The others respond immediately with playful whistles, almost like gentle teasing. You smile, watching the blend of seriousness and playfulness that defines their daily lives. Suddenly, the matriarch pauses again, this time sniffing the air. Her whiskers twitch as she picks up a faint, unfamiliar scent. A rival clan? You hold your breath. The tension tightens like a coiled spring. The otters cluster together, voices lowering to cautious whistles and purrs. You can almost feel the weight of ancient territorial disputes pressing down on the scene. Then a blur, an intruder. A lone male otter slips from the shadows, eyes darting nervously. The family responds swiftly, surrounding him with vocal warnings and circling maneuvers. There's no physical fight this time, but the message is clear: trespassers aren't welcome. You wonder how often these confrontations happen and what toll they take on the otter's energy and well-being. After the intruder retreats, the family relaxes, and the river resumes its gentle hum. You sink into the moment, absorbing the delicate balance of vigilance and calm that defines the giant otter's world. It's a world where every call, every movement, every scent mark tells a story of survival, family, and fierce loyalty. Night has draped itself over the jungle again, a dark velvet cloak studded with flickers of starfire. The river now whispers under the moonlight, shifting and sighing as your otter family settles down after a long day. The air cools, carrying with it the sweet smell of wet leaves and the distant, haunting call of a lone owl. You watch them, the way they curl up in a tight, furry knot on the sandbar, bodies pressed for warmth and protection. The cubs, small and restless, shuffle between adults like little shadows seeking safety. Their eyes blink slowly, heavy with the day's exhaustion. But sleep, as you know by now, is always tentative here. The jungle is never truly quiet. Suddenly, a sharp bark slices through the night air. Instinct kicks in. The family snaps awake, muscles coiled like springs, eyes gleaming in the dim light. A predator? Possibly. You strain your eyes toward the riverbank, barely making out the silhouette of a giant river otter rival. Not a stranger, but a challenger. A male, large and confident, pushing boundaries. The family's vocalizations intensify, whistles, growls, clicks, conversations charged with tension and warning. The adults form a protective wall, the cubs tucked safely inside. This moment isn't just a fight for territory, it's a struggle for identity, survival, and respect. You recall a mainstream fact: giant otters have been known to engage in fierce territorial battles, sometimes lasting days, where vocal exchanges escalate into physical confrontations. These fights can determine access to the best fishing grounds, breeding rights, and even the survival of entire family groups. The fringe side? There's evidence that some groups use vocal mimicry during these disputes, imitating rival calls to confuse and intimidate. It's a kind of psychological warfare rarely seen in other mammals. Historians and biologists continue debating the origins of this behavior. Is it a recent adaptation due to increased habitat pressure? Or has it always been a fundamental part of otter social dynamics? You feel the weight of those questions as the two groups circle each other, a dance of dominance and submission. Eventually, the rival retreats, disappearing into the shadowy undergrowth. The family's tension slowly unwinds, replaced by soft grooming and quiet whistles. You lean back, the river's gentle pulse syncing with your own heartbeat. In this wild theater, every day is a performance, a balancing act between cooperation and conflict, between safety and risk. And through it all, your otters remind you of the power of family, resilience, and the unspoken bonds that tie them together. As the night deepens, you let your thoughts drift, comforted by their presence and the river's eternal flow. The morning comes thick with mist, blurring the edges of the river and wrapping the jungle in a silvery haze. You're quiet, almost invisible, watching as your otter family emerges from their den like ghosts slipping through the fog. They move slowly, stretching long bodies, shaking off sleep, and greeting the day with soft whistles and playful nudges. The cubs tumble over each other, still clumsy but eager, ready to learn the ways of this wild world. This morning is different though. There's a buzz in the air, a sense of change, or maybe just the rhythm of life pressing forward. You follow as the group slips into the water, diving beneath the surface, bodies slicing through currents with practiced ease. The river feels alive, pulsing with secrets and stories that only the otters seem to understand fully. They head toward a favorite fishing spot, one marked by submerged logs and swirling eddies, prime real estate for catfish and other slippery prey. The hunt is methodical. The adults coordinate, herding fish into tight groups with gentle splashes and strategic movements. The cubs watch, wide-eyed, occasionally attempting clumsy dives that send bubbles and leaves flying. At one point, a young otter lunges too early, missing its catch and erupting in a splash of frustration. The others respond with soft whistles, almost like encouragement. It's a scene that's been repeated countless times across generations. A mix of trial, error, and triumph. You remember that mainstream fact. Giant otters' hunting success rates are surprisingly high, often above 50%, thanks to their cooperation and communication. But what strikes you more is their adaptability. The jungle isn't static, and neither are they. During flood seasons, they adjust feeding patterns. In drought, they move further, sometimes risking encounters with humans or other predators. Here's a quirky note. Some otters have been seen using tools, stones, and sticks to dig out prey or crack open shellfish. This behavior is rare and still under study but points to a surprising level of problem solving. Historians still argue how much these behaviors are cultural versus instinctive. Are tool uses passed down like folklore? Or spontaneous innovations? After the hunt, the family rests on a sun-warmed bank. You watch the cubs play in the shallows, splashing and chasing bubbles, their joy infectious. In this moment, the river feels timeless, a stage where life unfolds in cycles of challenge and care. You realize that giant otters aren't just survivors. They're teachers, learners, and storytellers in fur. And as you watch them, you can't help but feel a little hopeful about the wild world they navigate. The day fades into evening, the sky streaked with bruised purples and faded oranges as the sun sinks low. You follow your otters to a familiar sandbar, their favored spot for winding down after a long day of hunting, playing, and patrolling. The river reflects the twilight, calm and glassy, broken only by the occasional ripple from a diving fish or a flicking tail. The jungle hums softly around you, cicadas droning and leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. Your otters lounge close together, their fur slick and shiny from the day's swims. Cubs tussle with each other in the shallows, tumbling and squealing with youthful energy. Adults groom one another, teeth carefully cleaning fur, whiskers twitching in contentment. You notice how these moments feel different from the chaos of hunting or the tension of territorial disputes. Here, there's a quiet peace, a sense of family that anchors them amidst the wild unpredictability. You think back to everything you've seen, the high-speed chases, the complex calls, the fierce fights, and the tender care between mother and cub. Giant otters aren't just apex predators or social animals. They're a complex mix of instinct, culture, resilience, and love. Now, as night settles in, you sense the rhythm slowing, the wild world softening into rest. Remember that historical fact from the start? Giant otters have been around for thousands of years, their ancestors carving paths through rivers long before human maps existed. The fringe tidbit? Some legends say giant otters once walked on land more than water, evolving into their current aquatic forms only as the rainforest grew dense and river systems expanded. Historians still debate these origins, but it's a fascinating glimpse into their deep past. You feel the weight of time here, in the slow current and the gentle lapping at your feet. The otters settle down, curling into tight circles, bodies rising and falling with steady breaths. The jungle sounds softened to a lullaby, a chorus of crickets, distant hoots, and the river's gentle song. You breathe in the damp earth and cool water, feeling the day's stories settle deep in your bones. This is their world, fierce, fragile, and full of life. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy, you carry a little piece of that world with you. The night deepens, and the jungle exhales softly around you. The river's pulse slows, its surface smooth like glass, reflecting distant stars twinkling faintly above the canopy. Your otter family is tucked in close, safe in their den of earth and roots, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the night. There's a calmness here, a fragile peace earned through days of struggle and survival. The wild world holds its breath, waiting, listening. You feel your own breathing slow, the tension in your muscles ease. Thoughts drift like leaves on the water, soft and slow. Remember, the story doesn't end here. It flows endlessly with the river's course through the jungle's heart, carried by those who swim and whisper beneath the moon. Let that thought carry you now, as sleep pulls you gently into its depths. Good night.